Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm very excited to bring a friend, a colleague, and a great guest, Eric Asbeck, as my guest for today. Let me tell you a little bit about Eric. Over the years, Eric has had his fair share of life's curveballs, a tough divorce, a cancer diagnosis, you name it, but it didn't break him. Instead, it made him stronger and sparked this fire to help others. He spent some time in the corporate world, beginning in engineering and then pivoting to business. Then he took the leap to pursue his calling in entrepreneurship. Now Eric's mission is to help others grow their passion into a purposeful business that makes a difference, working on staying resilient and maintaining a growth mindset. It's all about keeping your eyes on your number one goal. From his own journey, he's learned that the importance of focus, adaptability, and drawing inspiration from every experience is what really matters. Unlocking business success with clear vision will be our theme for today. So please join me in my conversation with Eric Asbeck. Eric, so happy to have you finally as a guest.
Yes, hi, Vicki. Yes. We've talked about this for a while now.
A while. So before we get into the tough questions, we do have two easy questions. I always say this and people sometimes prove me wrong, but first, please share, where do you live? Where do you call home right now?
Sure. I live in Southeast Florida at this time. I moved down here right before COVID, actually, because my sons were here. So it's sort of like if the mountain's not going to come to Muhammad, right? And so my older son lives 15 minutes away from me. He just got married, and anyway, there's a lot of excitement coming. But I'm a couple hours north of Miami.
Nice.
And tucked off kind of in a very lovely area. Yes.
Very cool. All right. So we talked about a little bit about your journey, but I'd love for you to share some insights as to the different paths and changes of direction that were your life thus far. In a brief way, just talk about those curveballs and how they really impacted who you are today and what you do.
Sure. I think I'll start by framing it to say that, if I kind of look back, I've always kind of had a sense of what my own kind of personal North Star has been. And even though it kind of, and that's tethered me to a future where, despite being buffeted day to day by things, I kind of just that's where my heart lies. When I was a kid, my dad was a research chemist, and he was an immigrant. He'd come to the U.S. when he was 9, and even though he got his engineering degrees and he was very technically competent, he always had that kind of immigrant dream. So when I was a kid, He was an inventor type, and he designed and invented, like designed and patented and prototyped a 25 foot long amphibious motorhome. Drive it in the water, pull up the wheels. It's a boat.
Yes,
And a working
yes.
prototype and all that. And he spent a lot of the time in my childhood, working on that on the side. And he got ready to launch that business back in the early 70s. And right before he was ready to launch, he hadn't signed the loan commitments and all the lease, all that stuff. He hadn't signed that stuff. And the first oil crisis hit, and it was very petroleum. Like it was a gas hog, and it used a lot of petroleum products in the fiberglass hull and all that sort of stuff. So he backed off, and a couple of years later, things got better, and he lined everything up even more effectively. And the even worse second gas crisis hit, and he had a young family, couldn't really. I mean, he just,
Justify.
yeah, he couldn't take that risk, right? So he ended up through a series of events, retiring early and going into business with my uncle, moving up from where I grew up in Charleston, West Virginia, up to Cleveland, and took over at a business that my uncle had. And that actually provided he and mom with a secure retirement. Those old corporate pensions were useless. But that gave me the bug to want to have a business of my own. But I was I was good with math and science and physics and all that sort of stuff, as well as like loving. I played in the band, played clarinet, and I played sax in a rock group. Like did a lot of different things. But Dad's like, get your engineering degree, and then you can do anything. And so I kind of pursued that path rather than business. And one thing led to another, and it was always more secure to keep those engineering jobs. So I kind of found my way into corporate, and I was at Bell Labs, which is a big, back in the day R&D organization. And but I got my MBA in the evenings, and I made a pivot to first of all, I spent time working with my management to give me experiences around how to do things that would prepare me to be able to shift into a product management role on the business side. And I made that pivot and pursued that for a number of years. But my dream, even there, I was always working in the background to develop my leadership skills and pick up everything I could figure on how to run a business, even though I was kind of doing it inside the company. With those, as a product manager, you basically own a P&L. But events, one thing led to another, and I found myself reorganized out of my position back in 2008 when there's that crash. And I was also kind of dealing with the fact that a few years earlier I'd been diagnosed with an incurable cancer called multiple myeloma, and really I basically had to face my mortality and ask myself, how long I was going to live, would ever walk again because I had a tumor in my spine. And I was on bed rest. Would I see my sons graduate from high school and college and get married and have kids? And so with that whole combination of things, I finally just decided, rather than trying to find work in the corporate side, I was going to go for it with my own business. And then it's like, I thought I'd prepared. I did all that leadership and business training. I had an MBA. It's like when you start a business, you don't know, nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a whole different world. When in corporate, you have a structure around you and you fill a particular role, but you have all these resources. I was in a small internal startup that was kind of a pre-internet version of things, and I created an offer that ended up the first year generated like $25 million worth of business. And it was like hot, and there was all kinds of action and things, but I had all these levers to pull because I had people in billing and product development and marketing and all these, right? And you just pull the levers and there's this
Yeah.
huge impact. But when you're on your own, there's no levers. You
No
got
levers.
making it up, right? So I had it's a long learning experience with all of that. But
Yeah.
I guess I first started helping people that wanted to start a business figure out a business that they would love to do, that they could deliver with confidence. And I loved helping those newbies. And
Mm.
also found out that there were people that had started businesses that were successful, but they were miserable because they were off target. Because there's
Mm.
more to it than just the business piece of it. It's like if you have, especially if you have your own business, it's your whole life.
Yeah.
And the very first person that I helped that was in that kind of a mode, uh, he was ready to quit and walk away. And I'm like, dude, I know you better than you know yourself. And I made him do this work that I had been like, what do you love to do and do well that you know you can
Mm.
deliver? What do you want in all the areas, roles and relationships in your life? And he did that first exercise of what you love to do and you can deliver well. He's like, Eric, I am an entrepreneur. And I'm like, oh, I knew
Yes.
that, but I'm glad you had to see it for yourself. And then he did the second piece of work and he realized he loved musical theater. And he was in Manhattan and was on the side. He was auditioning for roles in musical theater, and he realized that that was a non-negotiable in his life. He had to
Mm.
have time for that,
Yeah.
and and he and his wife are really tight. And he said, I also need to have time on the weekends when I'm not in rehearsal to have time with her. And if I violate either of those two, everything else falls
Right.
apart. And that's what had happened with him. He was ready to walk away. So he got reconnected with that. And actually, I talked with him 6 months later, and he's like, I have this. He got back into business, and he was like, he found something that was really clicking. And I was talking with him, and he said, I was realizing if I just put the acting aside for 6 to 12 months, I can make this thing really, really go. And he says, and I heard your voice inside my head and say, well, you tried that before and how'd that work out for you? So
Mm.
he stuck to honoring those non-negotiables and
Yeah.
building the business, and he's doing very well. And actually, he's pivoted. He and his wife are now doing a business together, but he's also got a ton of acting roles that he's been doing.
Ah,
He's
that's
consistently,
awesome
yeah,
story.
you see him in these. He's done the lead in a variety of things. I actually went up to Brooklyn back when I lived in New Jersey, and saw him in the lead role in Kiss Me Kate. Uh,
Ah.
and yeah, I mean, at the Brooklyn Playhouse, I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea with one of those sort of
Mm-hmm.
things. It was an off Broadway, but nonetheless, I
But
mean,
still.
but his his quality of life is awesome, and he's happy.
Yeah.
And he had his own personal issues with like alcoholism and stuff like that that had kind of led him down a spiral. But once he got his, once he got clear about what was most important and honored that he really was competent as an entrepreneur, he's been sober for many years, and
Mm.
I can't credit myself for that, but that's his own personal journey. But it's like everything is clicking, right?
Mm.
And as long as he just knows that what his North Star is,
Yeah.
it he can make choices along the way as the winds buffet him, because
Mm-hmm.
he can kind of tether himself to where he wants to go. And that's the same for me. When I was diagnosed uh, with multiple myeloma, which is treatable but not curable, and I've been living that for the last 18 years, that knocked me off course. When I got divorced, I was not my choice. There's a long story that is not worth going into, but I was buffeted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even when I got my engineering degree and was working in corporate, first at Bell Labs and then the pivot to product management and all that sort of stuff, and finally going to entrepreneurship, it was always, I'm realizing, kind of tethered to that dream of having my own business and
Yeah.
and ideally having the freedom of time and finances and all that, which you don't get when you first start a business of your own, by the way. Uh,
That's very true.
yeah, there's a lot of figuring out, but you get the idea. It's around getting really clear, like knowing yourself really well. There's this old quote by Lao Tzu from The Art of War, something like the winning general first, knows himself, then knows the enemy, right? And then learns the terrain and those sort of things. But it starts like you got to know
Know
what's
yourself.
important to you. So,
So
um,
whenever you talk about this, how important then is to have that roadmap and understand those key indicators in the roadmap to provide you that clear vision?
yeah, um, I kind of invert that a little bit. Um, First, so what I teach is if you're even if you are in business, but especially if you're starting out, the first thing you want to do is that introspection and know about you
Mm-hmm.
and what your values are and what your vision, your life purpose are, not just for the business side of it, but for your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And then who do you really want to be working with? What kind of people do you really love hanging out with? I like hanging around with entrepreneurs. And so it's like
Mm-hmm.
I and then what's that area of what's that topic area, that area that you can provide some impact that's going to make a
Yeah.
difference. But that emanates from you knowing yourself. And once you get those things, so you start with knowing you, then who do you want to work with? What type of work do you want to do with people? And then you do this radical method. You actually go out and talk to those kind of people about that kind of thing and find out what they're struggling with, what their aspirations are, those sort of things, and build a program, build a system and a program and an offer around that. So it's aligned both with what they want and what they're ideally eager to buy and
Yeah.
what you love to provide. There's a lot of growth that you have to do on your side as you start to realize what they're looking for and finding that match. But if you disregard either side of that equation,
Mm.
then everything else falls apart. And the vision tunes and adjusts according to that.
Ah.
Still tethered by your own values and life purpose and things like that, but it evolves over time, and you start to say, okay, great. So here's the first thing that I can offer, and here's how I can have an effective what you call a business model, the way you make money, and how you can serve in a way that has impact and causes the transformations that you're that you're out to provide. Um, and you can start to come up with some milestones along the way of how you're going to get step by step to those big steps to move you in that direction. But it's a theory, and you start on that path and you find out, oh well, that didn't work, or I learned this now and that means I'm going to adjust things. And so there's this constant kind of adjustment of those stepping stones out
Right.
toward that longer term vision. But the vision is kind of anchored um, based on that, starting with that introspection and who you want to work with and where, the things you want to work with them about. And so over time, you can kind of picture you've got this anchor point, like you can imagine a reverse kite, right? Like like out in the future is the string that's holding that you're holding on the
Right.
ground.
Right.
But in this case, it's like you're the kite and kind of like
It's going
getting
everywhere.
buffeted by the winds, right? But you know that there's that string that leads you towards where you want to go. And
Mm-hmm.
you just have to, you start and you take a step, and then you look around and you say, okay, now I thought I was going to get here, but I'm here. And you adjust, and it's like, okay, well, I need to adjust those milestones a little bit in the future and so forth. But it's anchored again in those fundamentals.
Right. So whenever we talk about our businesses and having success, and once you know your vision, we have to do marketing. And people, a lot of times, entrepreneurs, again, we have 50 balls in the air, one person, a lot of times. Eventually, we delegate and hire people, but marketing sometimes falls along the wayside. So, what are some mistakes that people make from a marketing perspective?
Well, remember I talked about going out and actually talking to people
Yes.
you want to work with around the topic that you want to provide for them. Um, that grounds you
Mm,
in, because from there, if you know what they're struggling with and what their aspirations are, and other, and the more you know about those people
yeah.
in around that topic area, um, then you start to understand not only what system you want to put together that
Hmm.
can help them to achieve the transformation they want, but what products and offers you can put together that are
Mm,
aligned with them in a way that is, it's aligned with you and with what they're hungry to buy.
yeah, the
But then
pain.
from there, you can take that same information, like what are they struggling with? Well, you put those out. Those are great topic areas for social media. Those are you all that you learned ties into what you're going to say in terms of a webinar. If you're doing an interview like today, you can talk about what those pain points are,
Yeah.
and and speak in terms of the transformation and the possibility that you're confident you can provide for them. That your system will help them achieve. Um, you know what you're going to say in terms of blog posts. You get the idea. It all is grounded in understanding your your target market and what they and the thing that you're working them with them on better and better.
Mm.
And so actually you want to continue to do that over time too.
Yeah,
Uh,
because everything changes just as you
yeah.
are.
Mark, our one of mentor that we work with, he's pivoted and made shifts periodically, including some pretty radical ones. And
Mm.
what he's done is come back to the people in his community and said, "Hey, I this is something that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to make this change, and here's how I'm looking at doing it. But what's going like? How's that landing for you? And what's coming up
Mhm.
for you? And getting an idea of you know uh, what arises in the people he is closely serving that 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 he needs to address as part of making those shifts, so that people can come along with him in a way that is that they feel cared for, and that
Yeah.
not abandoned, right? um, so um, it, it you just got to keep, the more you stay in touch with the people you're serving and understand what's going on with them along the way, the better you can serve them, and the more um, they will feel served.
Yeah.
They will have the experience of being served, because if you keep that equation balanced, you're doing everything you can to find ways to help them achieve what they want to
Mhm.
achieve. And so
And
it's an
when
ongoing
you think
process.
about that, it is a lot of trial and error. I think part of being a project manager for so long really taught me that you don't know what you don't know. Right. There's a lot of unknown out there, so and a lot of people are afraid of the unknown. But there are going to be times where you're going to try something and it's going to fail. Or you're going to offer something and it's going to get rejected. Maybe you didn't do the research and the surveying and talking and networking to find out really what is the need. What I thought this was the need, but then the world changed and I wasn't keeping up with it. So how can rejection be our secret weapon?
Well, I'll have to say, just like inside of even the way that you just spoke about it, it's sort of like, well, if I do it right, then everything's going to kind of go according to plan. And then it doesn't. And then you're like, ah, I didn't do it right. But it's like, it's not really the case. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not like sometimes there's trial and error. There's like, it is always trial and error.
Yeah.
And here's how I describe it. When I was a kid, I grew up in West Virginia. We used to play around in the woods and run the hills and all that. And there was a creek. The creek was really wide and we had to cross it. And it was deep enough. I didn't want to get my shoes wet, right? So you walk up, so you come to the creek and it's like, well, I can't cross here. And so you wander up and down until you find a place where you can see some rocks and so forth that are going to lead you across. And so then you're like, okay, this is the way. And the thing is, you don't know that for sure until you actually start to go out there, because as you go across, a rock could be slippery or tottery, and it's like, well, that's not working. And you go back and you wander some more and you look for another place until you finally take the next crossing and you do the same thing. You take a step and test it and take another step and test it. And eventually you get across the creek. And that's the way it is every time you do something. I had a mentor that said, every marketing action you take is an experiment.
Yeah.
You have a hypothesis about what you think is going to happen, and you construct an experiment to test that hypothesis, basically. You say, I'm going to do this in order to achieve X, but it's like, really, I want to achieve X, and I think this is going to do it. And then you conduct the experiment, and you're like, well, I didn't get X. What can I do to do the experiment next time in a way that is more effective at getting me to achieve X? And you keep doing that, and you never quite get to X, but but you, you get closer and you get
Yeah.
more effective. And over time, things get tuned. I mean, you have a podcast, right? And for the listeners, I mean, Vicky has a whole series of things like, okay, here's how to log in. Here's the be technically prepared. Make sure you're good on camera. And here's what to do if we get disconnected. And here's the kind of questions we're going to talk about in general. And we're going to do this wrap. But that takes time to. You didn't construct that set of guidelines for your speakers like the first time around. That it didn't look like that. It is tuned and adjusted over time. And I've done the same thing. I have my own podcast, and you learn how to more effectively guide, in this case, guide the speakers so that things go smoothly. But it's the case for every single system and process that you have in your business. You can kind of think of your business as a set of systems and processes
That's
that
right.
you start to construct over time, and some of them are embodied in text so that you have like auto mailers that send things out at certain times, or like the framework. Like I have my studio set up here. Like I didn't start with this, right? And the same with you, and so forth.
Right.
So you start on the path, and you know where you want to go, and you're like, okay, I think this is going to be it, and you're like, well, okay, I need to do this or that. Over time, you get it a little bit more effective. It becomes more effective. And you talked about hiring team, and imagine what happens when you bring a team member on.
Mhm.
They're like, okay, great, you hired me, and you told me that I have the qualifications that you need to do this. Now, what do I need to do? And you're like, oh, well, I hadn't thought that far ahead. You need to figure it out. Like, no, that's not how it works. You need to be able to give them guidance. And where's that
Mhm.
guidance come from? You have done it yourself and you've started to construct things. And ideally, you kind of made some notes and write things
Job
down and
description.
so forth like that so that you can sit down with them and train them. And then they try it and it's like, well, not that's not quite it. And and you work with them until you kind of get to that place where you have a kind of harmonious team, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's all trial and error.
Yeah. That's for
And the
sure.
resilience comes in with accepting that. So I had a boss who was a CEO of a small startup that I was in, and he said, "Fail forward fast." It's
Hmm.
like you're not going to figure nothing. You're never going to be perfect. You just have
Yeah.
to kind of go out there and do that action bias, and then understanding that it could potentially be a disaster.
Yes,
And
it
then you
can.
like, okay, what the heck happened? And now what? Right? I
Mhm.
mean, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you've left yourself resourceless,
Yeah.
right? Um, so taking small steps and working and building things along the way. And if you have a business, um, always making sure that you're earning money along the way, every step. Um, is otherwise how are you going to pay yourself, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, the
Right.
uh, the
Right.
well gets emptied. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's like that.
And one, I guess, final thing about with the team and the importance of having you understanding your vision is you have to communicate clearly that vision to those that work with you because they are an extension of you and your business. And so they need to be able to communicate that to those that they speak about your business to. So, for
I would
sure.
argue actually that what you just said is not to, so you talked about it in the context of team, but it's really in the context of communicating to your potential
Clients.
clients or customers,
Hmm.
your existing clients and customers, any kind of promotional partners that you have. Team would you could argue like they're kind of production partners for you,
Hmm.
and communicating to yourself about what that vision is. And
Yeah.
I mean, so that's actually a really important job.
Yeah.
Actually, so yeah, like you need to make sure you're earning money every day.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you've got like systems and processes and teams in place in order to better and better uh, do all the blocking tackling that you need to do for your business, the marketing and attraction and sales conversion, and then the delivery and follow up and so forth, and all the operational things in the background, and and then you need to make sure that the people you're working with that you serve them with excellence.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
that's Yeah, that's your job.
That's your job. Time has flown by, and it's time now for me to share the slide of contact information for Eric. If you've enjoyed this conversation and think I need to really chat more with Eric and get some assistance in getting clear vision or being super focused as an entrepreneur, then you want to quickly get a pen and paper if you are just listening. But if you aren't able to do that, you know you can find everything on my YouTube channel, Vicky Nethling. So if you haven't, please do subscribe. And if you have, thank you so much. I also have everything on my Vicky Nethling's my Find Your Leadership Confidence website, which is where you can find all of these things in the show notes. The website is superfocusedentrepreneur.com. Again, that's superfocusedentrepreneur.com. You can find him also on LinkedIn by just simply searching his name, Eric Asbeck. And I'm going to turn it over to Eric. He's going to talk to you about his call to action, which you can find on his website as well as LinkedIn. So, Eric, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks. Um, so one of the very first things that people talk about is how to stay focused and avoid distractions. And I put together a free gift for y'all called Ultimate Time Mastery.
Awesome.
It's create your strategic success routine. And the idea there is to be able to get more done and feel less stressed when you're running your business. Make better decisions with a clear sense of direction and get more done in less time, and feel less stressed and keep your energy and the quality of things. And the core of that is a couple of key habits. One is a weekly review where you look back at what you did well and what you could do better and come up with your plans for the future, for the next week, and celebrating those successes. There's actually a brain science dopamine mechanism that goes on with that to make sure every little success that you celebrate. But then also day to day, like what tasks get on your calendar? There's something called the Eisenhower matrix where they talk about urgency and importance, urgent, not urgent, important, not important. I add to that a third factor called alignment. And that is around, is this something that's going to help me focus? Like that weekly plan would be a focus task or something like that. Is it something that's going to drive for my business? Is it going to drive revenue or do things around developing systems and serving customers with excellence? But also on a personal basis, what are those most important things you need to make sure you're attending to? Your relationships, doing social activities, taking care of yourself with exercise and eating well. And you get the idea. There's a set of things that are like most important. And the idea with in Ultimate Time Mastery, I'll show you a little quick system that you can start to use. And if something doesn't tick the boxes of is it in alignment and is it important, and is it either urgent or maybe not urgent, but it's really important to take care of that. If it doesn't tick those boxepps, why is it on your list?
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
grab that. It's at go.superfocusedentrepreneur.com/focus. So
Fantastic.
it's the same superfocusedentrepreneur.com, but with GO period in front of it, and then /focus, FOCUS.
Awesome. All right, Eric, thank you so much for having a great conversation today. I hope that the audience got as much out of this as I did. You had so many great points, good stories to help us really resonate with what you were saying. And as always, I thank you for being a fantastic guest.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have you in my world.
Oh, me too. I mean, we just should do this more often because I think it's a topic that we could talk about for days and days.
Yes,
But
we
as
can.
always, I remind
Actually,
everyone.
if your listeners have things that they want to hear more about, we can come back and talk about those.
Yeah, just put it in the messages to me on YouTube or my website. Hey, bring Eric back to Let's Talk About X. But as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Netling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Netling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.